Welcome back to the Demon Slayer Gaming Channel. Going to be continuing our Final Fantasy XIV Dungeon Guide series today. We're going to be taking a look at the first Alliance raid of the Dawn Trail expansion, Jeuno, the First Walk. For the first group, there shouldn't be any mechanics you really need to watch out for. They should die pretty quickly. Just move out of any AoEs that they throw on the ground. There'll be a couple large circular ones, and smaller circular ones. I do recommend turning up your sound for the first boss, as the sound cues are very helpful for avoiding some of the abilities. First boss is going to start off with Banishka. This is just going to do party-wide damage that you'll need to heal through. So then go to the center of the platform and begin casting Knuckle Sandwich. You'll want to pay attention to how many times she says wait for it. That will determine what circle you need to get behind. So if she says it 3 times like now, then you need to get behind the third line and then move in quickly, as there will be a secondary explosion behind that. Shortly afterwards, she'll begin another Knuckle Sandwich. She never does the same line twice, so again, just pay attention to how many wait for it's that she says. This time we got 2, so get behind the second circle, and then quickly move in to avoid the secondary explosion. You'll then have Nullifying Dropkick. This is your stack tank buster, so all 3 tanks will just want to group up, pop some damage reductions, and soak this up. You'll then cast Banish Storm. This is going to summon multiple scepters onto the platform that will launch circular AoEs in the direction that the arrows are pointing. So you'll just want to stand in between these arrows. Follow up with Holy. This is going to put multiple circular AoEs on random party members, so you'll just want to spread out. They apply a light resistance down, so you want to make sure you're not overlapping these or you'll probably kill people. She'll then go to the center and cast Crystalline Thorns. You'll want to move into the center with her and avoid stepping on the spikes, as they will deal a significant amount of damage along with damage over time. At the same time, she's going to cast Auroral Uppercut. You'll again want to pay attention to how many times she says wait for it, as that will be the line that you need to position on one of the outside platforms to avoid being knocked off. So this time she said wait for it twice, so I positioned my orange line, which is the middle one, to be on the outside platform, as that's where I'm going to be knocked to. After this, the spikes will disappear and you'll just go back to fighting her. She'll then cast Banishka 4. This is going to cause multiple spheres to appear around the platform. They will detonate in the pattern, either starting on the outside or the inside. So as you begin to see another circle traveling around the spheres, moving in towards the center, you'll want to move away from these spheres, as they're going to explode in a circular AoE. There is plenty of time to reposition in between them, so don't worry too much. She'll then cast another Crystalline Thorns, jumping to the center, casting another Auroral Uppercut. Again, you're going to identify how many times she says wait for it, and then reposition your line for that one onto the outside platform. So this time she said it 3 times, so I positioned my purple line, which is the furthest one, on the outside platform to avoid being knocked off. After this, she's going to do a group up AoE for the entire raid in the center of the platform. So you'll want to group up to split this damage and apply heavy healing at this time, as it does do a significant amount of damage if you have a few people dead. Then do another Banishka 4. This will summon these spheres around the platform. Again, they can either start in the center or they can go from the outside in. At the same time, she's going to do a knuckle sandwich. So identify how many times she says wait for it. This time it was only once. So we get behind the first line and then move in after the initial explosion. And then reposition out of the exploding orbs from the Banishka. Follow up with a holy, so make sure not to overlap these circles. And then a Banish Storm. This time there will be 3 staffs that you'll need to avoid standing inside of the lines. At the same time, she'll do Crystalline Thorns and Auroral Uppercut. So find your positioning that you can stand in to avoid the AoEs, while also taking note of how many times she says wait for it, so that you can position yourself to be knocked to the outside platform. If you do happen to land on the spikes, it is not an instant kill. It does do a significant amount of damage and then apply a significant damage over time, but if your healers are on point, then you should be able to survive it. Follow up with another nullifying dropkick for the group up tank buster. And then going into another Azuren's Fist for the AoE raid wide that you'll need to group up for.
This wasn't how it was supposed to go.
I have a foe to pick with this one, but first, the only way out is forward. A forest, huh?
Moving into the next area, you'll want to pick up this first group of ads, and then drag them all the way to the next set. There's several AoEs that you'll want to watch out for. Most of them are cones, but again, everything should die pretty quickly, so just AoE it all down. When you pick up Fafnir, you want to make sure that you're bringing him into the center of the platform first before turning him around. This is because one of his beginning abilities is a large circle underneath him, so you want plenty of area around the outside of the platform. He does start off with Dark Matter Blast, which is just a party-wide AoE that you'll need to heal through. He's then going to cast Offensive Posture and raise his tail, which will begin to glow. This means you need to be in the front of the boss to avoid the AoE around 75% of the platform. He'll then fly into the air, casting Offensive Posture, where you'll see his claws begin to glow. This is going to mean that he'll do a large circular AoE underneath him, so you'll just move towards the outside of the platform to avoid this. If you are hit by this ability or the tail swipe, you will be stunned for a period of time, so you will possibly get hit by a second ability. He'll then begin to cast Offensive Posture again, but his mouth will glow this time. This means you'll want to get underneath him, as he's going to do a circular fire AoE around the platform. You'll want to pay attention to where he is starting this, as where the fire circle begins is where it'll also begin to fade the quickest, as he's then going to jump into the air doing another Offensive Posture with his claws. So as soon as the fire AoE begins to go away, you want to move out to the outside. He follows up with another Offensive Posture, which is for his tail, so you need to get in front of him. And then he's going to do a Baleful Breath. This is a raid-wide group-up AoE that hits multiple times, so everyone will need to group to split this damage, along with providing significant healing and damage reduction, as it does do a large amount of damage. He'll then do Sharp Spike, which is going to hit every tank with a tank buster, so make sure that you're spreading out to avoid hitting the rest of the party. At this time, there will be groups of darters that are going to appear. The tanks that don't have the boss are going to want to pick these up and stack them at the boss's feet so that you can AoE all of them together. While this is happening, the boss is going to cast Hurricane Wing. This is just going to do party-wide damage multiple times, so you'll just have to heal through it. He's then going to jump to the front and summon Tempestuous Winds. This is going to cause a donut AoE to either move from the center of the platform out or from the outside of the platform in. You'll want to avoid being hit by this as it moves around. This is also going to cause large circular AoEs and smaller circular AoEs to begin rotating around the platform. The smaller ones will just knock you up, but if you're caught in the larger ones, it will knock you up and instantly kill you. While this is happening, Fafnir will also cast multiple sets of Horrid Roar. This is going to create red circles on the ground that you'll want to avoid standing in. He'll also multiple party members that will get large circular AoEs that you'll want to avoid hitting as many people with as possible as well. After this is done, he'll jump back to the center, doing another offensive posture with his tail, so you'll want to get in front of him. And then following this up with another Baleful Breath, so the entire raid needs to group up to split the damage. For the offensive postures, occasionally he will do them out of order. It's like he can substitute a offensive posture for a different one. This is just the typical one that I see. Sometimes he'll swap the ground AoE and the tail one in order, but he still does the same amount of them. He'll then jump back to the north side of the platform, casting either one of two AoEs. Wing Terror, the one that you see here, is going to do AoEs on the outside, so you'll want to move into the center. After the first AoE, it will also summon multiple darters, which again the off tanks will want to pick up and pull close to the boss. He'll then cast Absolute Terror, which is going to do an AoE down the center of the platform. He can also begin with Absolute Terror and then go into a Wing Terror. But you just want to group up the darters and AoE them down. While this is happening, Fafnir will also follow up with a Dark Matter Blast. This is just going to do party-wide damage, so you'll want to heal through this. And you'll want to make sure you're killing all of the darters before they finish their Pestilent Sphere. He'll then do another Horrid Roar for the red circles on the ground that you'll want to avoid standing in. Followed up by an offensive posture for the Dragon Breath. While this is happening, you'll have to avoid the red circles. So again, identify where the head is at, as that's where the fire AoE will begin, and it's also the place that it will fade away the quickest. So following up with the next offensive posture for the circle AoE underneath him, you'll want to move away as soon as the fire begins to fade to avoid being hit. And then another sharp spike on all of the tanks. So use some mitigation to reduce the damage for this and make sure you're standing away from everyone else. We'll then jump back to the center, casting another Hurricane Wind. So this is multiple sets of party-wide damage, so big healing at this time. I'll then begin to summon the Tempestuous Winds again, so make sure you're avoiding the Donut AoE, starting in the center or starting on the outside, and then try to avoid the smaller circles, but those are definitely a lot better to get hit by than the larger ones, which will instantly kill you. And also make sure to avoid the red circles from the Horrid Roar.
Teleportation magic. Oh, brace yourselves. Aye, so where are we now? And what are these floating ruins?
For the next group of ads, there will be one mechanic that the sprinklers do that you'll want to look away from them. Otherwise, it's just grouping them up and AoEing them down and not standing in AoEs. If you are looking at the sprinkler whenever the eye mechanic goes off, you'll just be blinded, making it so that you miss some of your abilities, causing the fight to prolong. It's not really a game changer, just kind of annoying. For the next group, you'll pick up the 3 Flamingos, and then move to the Despot. The Flamingos don't do anything of note, they're just kind of annoying, and you'll pick them up and AoE them down. They do have a small cone AoE that you can avoid standing in, but when the Despot begins casting Scrap Line Storm, you'll want to move away. And then after the pull, there should be a circular AoE underneath the boss, and then followed it up by a Donut AoE, so after moving away, you'll want to get close. After this, he'll do a circular AoE at a random party member, so just avoid standing in this. And then he'll begin casting a tank buster, which is interruptible, so you'll just interrupt it and not worry about it.
Five of them. This should be interesting.
When you begin the third boss, there will be one of 3 different ads. They'll link to the different groups. You'll want to make sure you're targeting the ad that you are linked to, as you won't be able to damage any of the other ones. It'll start off with a tank buster on each of the tanks. This will be followed up with cutting off the outside of the platform, so that you'll want to stay towards the center. Shortly after this, there will be multiple line AoEs that you'll want to move in between, while also looking away from the sphere that is on the platform. After the sphere goes off, there will be a large growing circular AoE that you'll want to move out of. Then the sphere will turn into a crystal that will do multiple cone AoEs that you'll want to avoid standing in. And then the large circle AoE will turn into a large donut AoE, so you want to move into the small circle. After this, the mage type one will jump to one side of the platform and begin casting Meteor. Someone will need to interrupt this before the cast finishes. Then the smaller axe one is going to jump to the center and do a rotating cone AoE. So you'll just want to move around the platform with this, avoiding getting hit. It'll end with a knockback from the center, so make sure that you're getting close to the center to avoid being pushed into the outside of the platform. You'll then have 3 group up AoEs, so you'll want to group to split the damage in your 3 alliances. There is a piercing resistance debuff with this, so you cannot stack these. Afterwards, the Scythe one is going to jump to one side and begin casting Guillotine. This is going to do a large AoE across the entire platform, so you'll need to get behind him to avoid being hit. Once this is done, the original 3 will disappear, and the other 2 will come to the platform. It'll start off with Dominion Slash, which is going to do party-wide AoE, along with summoning circles that will slowly drop onto the platform that you'll just want to avoid standing in. While this is happening, there will also be copies of the dual sword one that is going to chase people around that you'll want to run away from. Afterwards, the dual sword is going to do 2 line AoEs down the center of the platform that will happen in a cross, so you'll just want to move away from these. And then the sword and shield will cast Holy for raid-wide damage. You'll then go to the center of the platform, and the dual sword will begin casting a interruptible ability. To interrupt it, you first have to destroy the arc shield from the sword and shield one, and then afterwards you can interrupt the ability. It will instantly kill the group if you do not interrupt this, so you have to do it quickly. After this, the original 3 ads will begin coming back to the platform. So it'll start off with the axe one, which is going to go to the outside of the platform and do multiple line AoEs, followed up by a large circular AoE, so you'll just want to avoid standing in these. Afterwards, the Scythe one will come back and begin casting Guillotine, so again, get behind him. At this time, all of them are targetable, so you'll just make sure that they're all grouped up and just begin unloading into them with AoEs. It is a good idea to focus on the Scythe one though, as he has multiple abilities that make you reposition across the entire platform, which is kind of annoying. Afterwards, the Samurai one is going to come back and cast his double line AoEs that you'll need to move in between, along with the look away mechanic, the large circular AoE, followed by the multiple cone AoEs, and then the donut AoE, so you want to get into the small circle. As soon as this is done, then the dual sword will do his cross lines down the center of the platform, and the scythe one will jump to one side and begin casting meteor that has to be interrupted. After this, you'll be able to group them all up together again, begin AoEing. You'll have a raid-wide group up AoE, so make sure that you're grouping to split this damage. It does hit multiple times, so make sure that you're keeping heals going and doing any sort of damage mitigation that you can. You'll then have the tank buster on all 3 tanks, so make sure that you're moving away from the tanks and giving them ample room to avoid hitting the rest of the group with these. Then the axe one is going to jump towards the outside and do his multiple line AoEs followed by the circular AoE. So just avoid these as they go off. Followed by the scythe one doing his guillotine, so you'll need to reposition and get behind him again. Then the dual sword will go to the center, begin charging a large AoE that's just going to do party-wide damage in multiple sets. So you'll just want to do heavy healing through this. And about this time, they should all start dying, so then you have to worry about fewer and fewer mechanics.
Well fought. Would Lamar chose her companions well? Our next destination. No doubt the warm reception awaits us. Let's go and have a look. What? No, I only... Come, mortals. Allow me to show you the depths of my hatred and your folly!
Going into the final boss, he's going to begin with Umbra Smash. This is going to do 4 sets of AoEs that are going to expand outward after they go off. So you'll want to make sure that you're moving in between these. He'll then follow up with Giga Slash. In the first phase here, it's going to be 2 AoEs that cover 75% of the platform. So you'll pay attention to the animation for the sword, and you just move into the opening for both AoEs. There is a pretty short delay in between these slashes, so you do need to move quickly. It's going to follow up with Flames of Hatred. This is just going to do party-wide damage that you'll have to heal through. He's then going to cast Implosion. This is going to do a circular AoE underneath the boss, and whichever hand the orb gets bigger in is going to do an AoE on that side of the platform. So you'll want to move to the side that has the smaller orb. He'll then do Chthonic Fury. This is going to cut off a large portion of the platform and do party-wide damage. Afterwards, there will be symbols that will be put onto the platform That can happen in different patterns, so it's not always going to be this way, but you'll want to pay attention to where the red lines are going, as that's where the AoE is going to happen. He'll then follow up with a Dark Nebula. This is going to do a knockback from one side of the platform, so you just want to make sure you're being pushed from one circle to the other. This can be prevented with knockback prevention. He'll follow up with another Implosion, which is the circular AoE underneath him, along with the AoE on whichever side of the platform that the orb grows on. He'll then do 2 sets of the previous AoEs. He then cast Echoes of Agony for a raid-wide group-up AoE that hits multiple times. So make sure that you're mitigating this as much as you can and providing large AoE healing at this time. He'll then cast Chthonic Fury one more time for party-wide damage and ending this phase. He'll then cast Nightfall, which is going to be his phase transition into phase 2. At this time, you'll have about 20 to 25 seconds to just unload DPS into him. Once he dons his armor, then he'll begin to cast Terra Slash. This is going to do a large amount of damage to the entire raid. You don't need to use the LB3 for the tanks, but you do need to use mitigation along with like shields and everything to survive this, and then heal the raid up afterwards. He's now going to be casting Giga Slash Nightfall, so there is going to be 3 sets of AoEs for his Giga Slash that you'll need to keep track of and move between. So again, just identify the openings and then move between them. The first and second slash are always on opposite sides, and then the third one will either be behind him or in front of him. He'll then cast Shadow Spawn, which is going to create duplicates of himself that will duplicate the next abilities that he casts. So for this one, he casts Giga Slash Nightfall. The duplicates will only do the original versions, so they only do 2 slashes instead of 3. But pay attention to where he's doing his 3 slashes. As the third one is happening, then the other copy will begin casting the other Giga Slash, so you'll want to position to avoid his. He'll then begin to cast Implosion, so pay attention to which orb gets larger, as that one's going to get a large AoE on that side. And then the copy will do the exact same ability. He'll then do Unbridled Rage. It's going to do a line tank buster through each of the tanks, so make sure that you're not standing behind the tanks at this time. He'll follow up with circular AoEs on multiple party members, so make sure you're spreading out to avoid overlapping these. And then Echoes of Agony for a raid-wide group-up AoE. At this time, depending on how many party members are dead, this is going to hit very hard, so make sure that you're doing a significant amount of AoE healing and mitigation if possible. He'll then begin casting Binding Sigil. This is going to do 3 sets of circular AoEs. You'll want to identify where the first set is happening, and then after the first set actually is cast, then you'll want to move on top of those to avoid the following 2. The follow up with Damning Strikes. This is going to put 3 party members into the air that he's going to knock into the ground. You'll want to split into your 3 different alliances and soak the damage from this to keep everyone alive. Afterwards, he'll jump back to the center, casting Chthonic Fury again. This time when he does Dark Nebula, it's going to do a pushback on all 4 sides of the platform. Again, you can use knockback prevention to avoid most of these. So if you want to just take the first and second push and then not worry about the third and fourth, or you can completely follow him around the platform. It will push you onto the boss, so it's not that big a deal. As he's doing this though, he's going to be casting Giga Slash Nightfall, so you have to pay attention to where he's starting his slashes. So as soon as the last Dark Nebula goes off, you'll be able to get into position to avoid these slashes. He then is going to do the AoEs between the circles and square that are on the platform. We got the ones that were going outwards this time. He then is going to do multiple circular AoEs on many party members, so try to avoid overlapping these, as they do a magic vulnerability up debuff, so they will hit increasingly harder if you get hit by multiple ones. And then another Chthonic Fury to end this phase for party-wide damage. He's then going to spawn these shadows one more time. He'll start off with a Umbra Slash. Make sure that you're repositioning after the initial slash to avoid the expanding AoEs. When he does this, both shadows will go towards the outside of the platform and cast the Umbra Smash also. Theirs are going to go through the center of the platform, and you can reposition into the direct center after the initial AoE to avoid everything else. As this is happening, the boss is going to cast his Giga Slash Nightfall, so pay attention to where the first AoE is, and then reposition to avoid the other two. He'll then begin to cast Doom Arc. This is going to do a little bit of damage to the entire party, but will put a bleeding damage over time on all party members. So you need to stay grouped up and do a significant amount of healing at this time to keep everyone alive. While this is happening, he'll begin to do his Giga Slash Nightfall again, so you'll have to reposition into the 3 slashes. He'll then do another Shadow Spawn and do his Giga Slash Nightfall one more time, which will be copied by the spawn once he's done. And this will be followed by another Implosion if he's not dead at that time. But this should be it for Jeuno, the first walk. I hope this helped everyone out. If it did, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And I will catch you on the next one.